Hello and welcome to Who Wore Better. Let's begin right away with the news that was announced on Monday Night Raw that at WrestleMania there will be the Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal, the female equivalent of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. A few things to talk about before we get to the meat of the story. First off, that trophy is not the business. That statue of Moolah on top just looks like the Andre statue with the jacket and wig on top of it, so that doesn't look very good. Second of all, after this matchup, have we officially run out of match types that they can make historical firsts for women? I think there might be, maybe there's a female Punjabi prison match coming down the line. I don't know. But third, and the most important thing here is, like, seriously, Fabulous Moolah, that's the woman you choose to honor and glorify by naming this match after her. You know, the two words that best describe it to me are hypocritical and tone deaf. It's remarkably tone deaf, especially in the era we live in now with the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement, that Moolah is getting this fame and glory and bringing her name back to the high heavens here with this match type to give her such a spotlight here. You know, we talk about the hypocrisy and the irony of Ultimate Warrior having a humanitarian award named after him in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, he might have been crazy and racist and homophobic, but shit, at least he kept that to himself. He didn't actively hurt people with his rhetoric. You know, the Fabulous Moolah, there's so many stories of her through the years from several qualified people. You know, at best, she held a stranglehold on the women's wrestling industry in America for decades, not only making herself the one and only star, but also screwing over so many countless women trainees under her and keeping them held down and skimming their pay and all sorts of bad stuff. But, you know, at worst, there's all the stories of the human trafficking and the pimping, along with her husband, Buddy Lee, being responsible for that. And there's so many stories from people like Sweet Georgia Brown and Mad Maxine and Leilani Kai and Penny Banner and Luna Vachon, who all have had some variations of stories of how scummy of a person the Fabulous Moolah is. And this is the person they decide to pay tribute to and memorialize with this match type. It just seems remarkably absurd to me. Now, granted, they knew this was going to get talked about. I cannot believe that no one in the organization had a second thought about, like, oh, should we really name this award after her, name this match after her? Seems kind of weird. Because, you know, last year when they did the Mae Young Classic, I thought, okay, it was nice of them to not, because you would assume they would have named after Moolah. That would be the first choice. Then when they named after Mae Young, we thought, okay, we're going to give them credit here. They actually know, you know, when to keep things at bay. No, we gave them too much credit because they waited less than a year to announce this match at WrestleMania. It seems ridiculous they would do that, because there are so many other highly qualified women who are no longer with us you could name that match after. You know, there's Miss Elizabeth, there's Sherry Martel, there's Luna, there's Chyna, there's so many other women you could, like, name this thing after. And it's just, again, of all the people, Moolah, and just the fact they fawned so much praise on her, like in the packages with the women talking about them. Oh yeah, Bailey saying she grew up watching the Fabulous Moolah. Is she 60 years old? How could she watch up growing Moolah? And second of all the online praise that the women had. You know, whether they were told to or not, you have to believe that those women know something about the Fabulous Moolah and her indiscretions, and the fact they had to praise her online and in the video packages. I felt bad watching that. It's not a good look, basically. So with that ugliness out of the way, let's move on to my Raw and Smackdown recaps. Raw begins with GM Kurt Angle opening the show. He talks for a bit about his upcoming match at Mania alongside Ronda Rousey against Triple H and Stephanie. Conspicuous in her absence is Ronda Rousey, despite them announcing from the high heavens that she was going to be at every episode of Raw leading to WrestleMania. Now it sounds like she's only going to be on the go-home show from here. So, like, big change from every Raw to, like, 2 Raws, or 3, I guess now. Because, yeah, she was apparently in California on Monday on the Ellen show, and to her credit, she was plugging her match at WrestleMania, she was plugging WWE, and they're putting that over big. So at least, you know, it was for something, you know, like, related to the product. So good for them on that. But then Kurt says that in spite of the advertised face-to-face between Roman and Brock, that Brock will not be there once again tonight. Roman interrupts. Roman Reigns comes out and basically says, well, I've been proven right. Brock has no respect for me or the fans of the business. He calls him Vince's boy, which is pretty rich coming from Roman. But then he calls out Vince McMahon, says, you know, I can handle being disrespected by Brock, but not by Vince McMahon. So he puts down the microphone, storms up the ramp, and he goes in the gorilla position. You see him out there. He's confronting Vince in gorilla, and everyone's there watching, and Shane McMahon's next to Vince for some reason. They never acknowledge that on SmackDown. So they go to his office, they go to break, and then after break, you see Roman storm out of the office. You see Vince come out, and he addresses the situation. He says that Brock does get special treatment, but he's earned it, but he will be at Raw next week. He says that Roman has been temporarily suspended. So for how long, who really knows? To me, it harkens back to the build for WrestleMania 32, too, when like he had a legitimate like facial or nose surgery or something, so he was off for like several weeks for the build to his own main event match. But I thought this was a really strong segment. I really enjoyed the fact they blurred the lines, going behind the scenes and guerrilla, keeping the cameras rolling on that, seeing Vince there. It's kind of like the curtain being pulled back a bit on the Wizard of Oz, but it's just really cool to see that kind of interaction, kind of like that, you know, we're breaking the fourth wall, we're in reality mode now. Whoever is writing this story for Roman and Brock honestly should get a raise. First match of the night is Sasha Banks versus Sonya Deville. At one point, Bayley does show up and prevent Mandy Rose from interfering. That allows Sasha to win with the bank statement, but as soon as that happens, Bayley pretty much evaporates. She's gone. So then after the match, after Sasha wins, Absolution surrounds the ring. They beat down Sasha, and now Sasha seems to be paying the price for stabbing Bayley in the back at the Rumble and Elimination Chamber. Curious to see where they go from here, because now they seem to be like doing all these beatings now that Sasha's getting, it seems like we're kind of supposed to be getting sympathy for her now as well. So who is going to be the full-fledged heel in this, I wonder? We get Miz TV with special guests Finn Balor and Seth Rollins. Not much to say about this segment, because basically the whole story is Miz tries to drive a wedge between Finn and Seth, have them working against each other so Miz can get off scot-free, but this time it backfires. Both the guys beat up the Miz, and then Rollins strikes Balor, which leads into a match between them later on. We get a big old tag team schmoz. It starts out ostensibly as the Bar versus the Miztourage, then soon literally every Raw tag team comes out. I think even a couple SmackDown tag teams came out as well, and they're all starting to beat up on the Bar. I love the point where Titus O'Neil and Apollo come out and Sheamus does the Wakanda Forever thing as some kind of show of solidarity before he gets beat up. But yeah, the Bar is shell-shocked, and that's how the segment ends. We do find out the main event's going to be a tag team battle royal to determine just who will finally face the Bar at WrestleMania, and thank God for that, because I was worried it was going to be a big old like multi-tag team match. A WrestleMania without John Cena is like a day without sunshine. That's the kind of vibe we're supposed to be getting from this, because John still has no clear path to WrestleMania. He talks about in the promo, he couldn't get the job done on Raw or on SmackDown. He has no one to blame but himself. He says he will not be contributing to WrestleMania this year, like any capacity, really. So you won't be like, you won't be backstage, you won't be at catering, you won't be doing camera crew, you won't be flying the show, you won't be contributing in any capacity, John. So then he says, well, I'm going to go to WrestleMania this year as a fan. He's so excited to be sitting in the crowd, sitting on the sidelines this year. He goes into the crowd, he drinks a fan's beer, he leads like a Let's Go Roman chant, he leads a This Is Awesome chant, he leads a Let's Go Cena sucks chant. This is lunacy. This is what I was seeing here. It looked to be like the monologue of a lunatic, someone who's just who's been mentally broken. But he gets back in the ring, the promo just violently hits a switch and turns around. Cena says, I'm challenging the Undertaker at WrestleMania. He repeats that phrase several times, and then he just all of a sudden lays into Undertaker. And he says, get over your ego, get over your lame excuses. He does try to motivate Undertaker by saying, you're not that old, you're not too broken down, you can still go, you're not washed up. But then he calls him a self-centered, conceited egomaniac. He's like, whoa, again, more blurring the lines and more like kind of going into like the real life thing, or kind of painting Undertaker as some guy who's just like being political and saying the only reason this match isn't happening is because the Undertaker's being stubborn. And he's kind of like addressing him in this kind of like kind of shoot way. It was a really, really strong promo. This promo had everything, because it took you on this emotional roller coaster, and it was really one of the strongest promos I've seen from Cena in a long time, who's lately been making a name for himself cutting these kind of like close to the bone promos. But this one just felt like the strongest, because no one talks about The Undertaker that way. Like nobody, even Roman Reigns, who was the most confident person on planet Earth when it came to fighting The Undertaker at WrestleMania, did not talk about Taker that way. And so now you've got John Cena just basically like stripping him bare and like, showing him like, hey, here's this egomaniac who's like, who's denying me and the fans this opportunity to have this classic match. So he calls out Taker one more time, and that's the whole thing. But yeah, what a promo. After they recap the Symphony of Destruction match from last week, almost in its entire unedited form, I guess they were pretty desperate to fill for time in this show, Elias shows up in the ring, and he's got a neck brace on, he's got cuts in his face, he's still selling the beating from last week. He says to the fans, this is your fault. And he walks away, leaves the ring, he leaves his guitar in the ring, and he walks away. So like, what does this mean for Elias going into WrestleMania? Seth Rollins and Finn Balor's up next, and it is the only match to happen in the second hour. Everything else in this hour was all promos and recaps and hype packages, and that was it. But if you're going to have one match in the hour, it better be Seth and Finn, because this was a great match. Just a hell of a fight from bell to bell. I absolutely love this match. The finish was also pretty cool too, because Seth doing the superplex, and he's going into the Falcon Arrow, rolling into it, but Finn catches him in a small package and pins Seth right there. So that was kind of a really creative way to end the match. You don't usually see matches end on superplexes that much. So it was kind of, again, great match from start to finish. And yeah, it was a longer match. It was very intense, and it was great stuff. Asuka's being interviewed in the ring, and she's asked why she chose to face Charlotte at WrestleMania. Before she can answer, Alexa Bliss and Mickie James come down to the ring. Alexa says Asuka is running from her. She knows Asuka can't beat her, even though we literally saw Asuka beat Alexa Bliss a couple of months ago. It's verifiable. It's on tape, folks. Alexa mocks Asuka for her language skills some more. It's muy racist, muy heelish, but we just keep seeing that seems to be the go-to thing for Alexa Bliss here, and I don't know how to feel about that. Alexa cues Nia to come down and beat her up, but Nia does not show up. So then Mickie calls an audible and beats up Asuka herself, and that leads into a match between these two. Mickie works Asuka's knee for a while after Asuka goes for a kick, but hits the turnbuckle post instead. We got a Rusev Day chant during this match, which I thought was kind of weird. I didn't think it was boring enough to warrant an irrelevant Rusev Day chant, but maybe it's just because Rusev's so over, it cannot be contained to any one specific match. So Asuka dodges the Mick kick, gets her in the Asuka lock and wins. I thought it was a good match. After some more emotional manipulation by Alexa Bliss, Nia Jax comes out for her match against a local talent named Joan King. Squiggity squash. After the matchup, we see on the screen Alexa and Mickie are backstage and they're talking basically off the cuff. They don't know they're being recorded and that the microphone in the corner of the shot is open. They don't know their mic is live, and they basically, they trash Nia. Alexa admits she's using Nia. She's as dumb as she is big, and so on and so forth. Charlie Caruso walks in and then kind of lets them know, hey, you've been on the air this whole time. People have seen everything. And then you see, Alexa and Mickie leave the place. They freak out. Nia bursts in and wrecks the locker room, demanding to know where Alexa is, and she screams in anger over what happened. And this, I thought, very strong work. Last week I was unsure about where they were going with it, with Nia crying, but this felt better to me. It was an inkling of what we saw last year around No Mercy time, when Nia turned on Alexa Bliss and then nothing came of it and they were friends again. But now this seems to be the official happening where they break up now. Now the blow-off officially happens, and we wait for when Nia eventually gets her hands on Bliss. It is weird, like I said, it is weird to see Nia in this vulnerable state, but to be honest, it's a storyline that I think works because it's based on reality. If not exclusively for Nia, it's a reality that many people face, where they feel like outcast and they feel like people might be manipulating them and not being good friends. And so I think this is a very, in that respect, it's a relatable storyline. It's a relatable booking. People can identify with this and get behind Nia that way. I think right now, I think it works. We get a preview of next week's Ultimate Deletion match between Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. You see footage of the Hardy compound, and it is balls to the wall fan service, this video package here, because you've got all the familiar landmarks, like the Lake of Reincarnation. You've got all the characters you've come to know and love over the years, like Senor Benjamin and Queen Rebecca and so on. This was a really fun thing to watch. Hit all the high points for me. Then Bray with the counter argument. He basically threatens Hardy's family, at least the ones who haven't been arrested yet. Also, I feel like when I was thinking about this today, that sounds like a bummer, but I think Bray's going to win this. I feel like he's going to win the Ultimate Deletion. Matt Hardy will not be undefeated at the Hardy compound for very long. Time now for our main event, the Tag Team Battle Royal, to see who will face the Bar at WrestleMania for the titles. But after all the teams come out comes Braun Strowman, who earlier in a backstage segment said he was mad that he didn't have a match yet for Mania, and he's going to be in the match by himself. He eliminates a couple people early on. The rest of the guys take him out for a few minutes, and they fight amongst themselves. Braun makes his way back in. More eliminations. It's down to Braun and Carl Anderson. Braun grabs him and yells, "I'm going to WrestleMania!" And then he flobs Anderson out onto a bunch of other guys, and he wins the match. And so Michael Cole cannot wrap his head around the concept of Braun challenging for the tag titles by himself, but surely there has to be some precedent for this, at least in WWE. I know there's precedent for things like, Matt Morgan was the sole TNA Tag Team Champions for a while, and there's other examples of that, but you get what I'm saying. So now Braun seems to have his match. I was thinking after last week it'd be cool to see kind of an odd couple pairing of Braun and Elias challenging the Bar, but now if it's going to be 2-on-1, I'm also intrigued by that. Before I move on to SmackDown, this week's edition of Who Wore It Better is sponsored by SeatGeek. I've talked about these guys for a long time now, and I'm a big fan of these guys. I know a lot of my fans who've used the promo code over the months in the last year or so. They've benefited from these guys as well. It's an app you can download on your iOS or Android device where you can get tickets with great deals for concerts and sporting events and WWE, you name it. If you want to be one of the many Wregret fans who have benefited from this app, go download the app using the links in the description, at the top of the description here of this video. Go to the Accounts tab, put in the promo code WREGRET, and you'll get $20 back on your first ticket purchase. SmackDown begins with some AJ Styles promo time. He talks about his victory at Fastlane, and he talks about his upcoming match with Shinsuke at WrestleMania. Then out comes Shinsuke to interrupt. He says, "I respect you, but I will still knee you in the face and become the champion at WrestleMania." Then out comes Rusev. I guess we're going to have a match now. It's AJ versus Rusev in singles action after the break. Good work by both guys in this match. Again, great selling by AJ on Rusev's offense. I thought there was a really cool moment where Rusev slipped out of the Styles Clash attempt to get into an accolade. Even though he didn't get the accolade in, it was still kind of a cool little escape there. He's in the calf crusher, and then Aiden jumps in with a DQ. He beats up on AJ. We get a bit of a beatdown, 2-on-1, but then Shinsuke comes in, takes out Rusev and Aiden. So Rusev doesn't lose the match, so at least there's that. Backstage, they do have AJ and Shinsuke have another conversation where Shinsuke says, "I will protect you every week until WrestleMania when I beat you." So at least, that's an interesting story. We'll see how far that goes. So it was announced Monday online, but made official on Tuesday in a video package that Kid Rock is the next celebrity inductee for the Hall of Fame. I get why he's going in there. It makes sense because he's worked with the company for so long, almost 2 decades now, providing theme music and entrance songs for people. He's averaging 1 a year basically at this point for as far as pay-per-view themes go. So I get why he's there. That makes total sense. But still, it's no Lemmy, no Cyndi Lauper. Come on, man. Jimmy Uso and Big E are the sole survivors from Sunday's beatdown by the Bludgeon Brothers that broke up the tag title match, so they'll be taking on the Bludgeon Brothers here. I do like the idea of having members from different teams pairing up for the common good of fighting the Bludgeon Brothers here. You don't see that very often. You don't see tag teams intermingling like that. But I did enjoy Big E's pre-match promo backstage where he's by himself. You don't really see Big E cut a lot of solo promos anymore. Even when he was cutting promos, even when he had a monologue in some promos with the New Day, he's still flanked by Xavier and Kofi. This is his first true solo promo for a very long time, I think. A great moment before the match begins where Jimmy and Big E each grab chairs, and then the Bludgeon Brothers grab their mallets, and the referee just pieces out. He dives out of the ring because he wants no part of it. Then the match officially begins, sans weapons. They take out Big E, they throw him into the steps, they powerbomb Jimmy, the Bludgeon Brothers win, they put some more beat down on Big E after the match. And so yeah, the Bludgeon Brothers look strong. They've done some savage beatings on 2 of the top tag teams on Smackdown. Makes them look very good. I'm curious to see how they're going to book this going into WrestleMania. Is it going to be a triple threat tag team match? Will it be 4-on-2? How are they going to work these 3 teams together? The SmackDown Women's Champion, Charlotte, calls out Asuka, her opponent for WrestleMania. She puts Asuka over in a big way in this promo, but she says that, at the end of the day, I'm still going to beat you. I'm going to break the streak and cement my legacy. Asuka says she chose Charlotte because she likes the challenge, and that Asuka bows to no one. You may be a queen, but I'm an empress. The two smile at each other, and the segment ends it wasn't good, it wasn't bad. SmackDown, I think, has this huge hill to climb for WrestleMania because they've got to promote their 2 top title matches with each of the challengers being non-native English speakers cutting promos. So that is going to be a very tough task for them. I hope they can pull it off. Randy Orton's entrance bleeds into the end of that segment. He's the new U.S. champion. He's talking about being a Grand Slam champion. He puts over Bobby Roode big in that promo, who then interrupts the promo and challenges Orton to a rematch at WrestleMania. Then out comes Jinder Mahal and says he's going to beat Bobby Roode tonight. I think it would have made for better heat if he had interrupted Bobby before he got his catchphrase out. We get a good match here between Bob Roode and Jinder Mahal. There's a USA chant near the end of the thing, which I think is funny because both guys in the ring are Canadian. Maybe they were chanting on behalf of Orton. Who knows? Orton was at ringside for this thing. Sunil, with a distraction on the apron, allows Jinder to get the cheap shot, then the Khallas. He wins the match. Again, pretty good match here between these 2 guys. Orton then runs in immediately and hits Jinder with the RKO. The face Orton makes as he's running up to Jinder before he turns Jinder around and hits him, I thought was pretty fun. I don't know if he meant to do that. It looked funny to me. So yeah, Orton stands tall here on Tuesday after Roode stands tall on Sunday. So I'm guessing Jinder will stand tall next week, perhaps? After they doubled down on the news of the Fabulous Moolah Battle Royal, we get a match between Naomi and Carmella. It was an okay match. I thought it was a little too much hair pulling for my liking. I think it's kind of an old school thing. It was very Moolah-esque. I guess they were doing it in honor of Fabulous Moolah to have kind of a more old school match here. I did like Naomi's knee after missing the roundhouse kicks and then the knee at the end. That's a really cool spot. Carmella wins after pulling Naomi off the ropes by the hair. She pins, and so hey, she gets 2 wins in a row. She gets on Fastlane and then on Smackdown. So finally, things are looking up for the Money in the Bank winner. The show ends with Shane McMahon coming out for a WrestleMania announcement. Early in the night, we see some fiery promos between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens individually, where you're given the impression that there's tension between those 2. There might be some kind of blow-off in the future. Shane says he's taking an indefinite leave of absence as commissioner, because I guess now he feels there's too much of a conflict of interest. It's only been 5 months. And then he announces that Kevin and Sami will face off against each other at WrestleMania. But then Kevin and Sami come out to interrupt him individually, but the whole idea of there being tension between those two was an elaborate ruse, because the two of them just beat down Shane McMahon. They hit him with their finishers, they wrap the chair around Shane's neck, and they throw him into the turnbuckle post, kind of what Kevin did to Chris Jericho last year, and then they drag Shane up the ramp. Sami's screaming, "Nah, nah, nah, nah," and then they take him backstage, they keep beating him up there, they do a powerbomb onto some metal framework in the backstage area. Shane makes some weird breathing, selling noises, like it's very uncomfortable to hear him sell like that, and that's how the show ends. So yeah, it ends on a high note with Kevin and Sami leaving their mark on Shane McMahon as he's taking this indefinite leave of absence. Curious to see how that's going to play into Mania. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. Raw wins this week, easily. It was easily the best, strongest episode of Raw I have seen in quite some time. Were there a ton of matches? No, not really, across 3 hours, but the ones that they did have, in my opinion, were all good to great. And just the stories they had were awesome. The stories they told you, just what they're doing with Roman and charging in a gorilla position to confront Vince McMahon, that was really cool. The stuff they did with John Cena in his promo with The Undertaker, like just the way he talked about The Undertaker that way, just never been done before, and it was just so jaw-dropping. It kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. Seth versus Finn was the best match of the night, probably the best match of the week in my opinion. Nia and Alexa, the stuff they're doing with those two is great stuff. Like, I'm really warmed up to it now. I hope they don't like go over the edge with it and just like go like gratuitous level, but I think what they're doing now is really good. I hope they don't screw it up. And the tag team battle royal at the end I thought was a very strong way to close the show. Braun Strowman beating ass, what's not to love? I think maybe the Symphony of Destruction recap was a little excessive, the way they kind of left it almost untouched. Seeing no Ronda Rousey there, even after they were advertising she'd be there every week, that was kind of like, that's kind of a nitpick for me. And the Fabulous Moolah announcement, that sucked, but that's not a Raw thing. That's just a whole company-wide thing. With SmackDown, I enjoyed the matches that we had. The Rusev and AJ match was good. Jinder and Rude, those are both fine matches. The closing segment was great stuff. The strongest part of that show was the end with Shane and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I love that stuff. The Charlotte Asuka thing was a little too stilted for me. I've never liked Charlotte's face promos at all, and Asuka, her delivery with her promos, I think it's leaves a lot to be desired. I know she's not a native English speaker, and that's just that's her delivery. But I think the way these two had their clashing promos, I thought was just kind of weird. And the same kind of goes a little bit for AJ and Shinsuke, like two faces going at it. And again, I think AJ's heel promos are a lot better than his face ones, just in my opinion. So yeah, I think just some of the talking bits on SmackDown for me were just kind of they were too symmetrical in a way. They were too similar, and they just kind of they fell on me in the same way, each one. But I do think both shows did really well overall this week. I think SmackDown was stronger than normal. I just think Raw was that much better. The Mania hype is real, it is there, and both shows so far bringing their A game as far as Mania build. But like I said, Raw was just way stronger for a lot of reasons. Let me know what you guys thought about Raw and SmackDown this week in the comments section below, and be sure to vote which show you thought was better in the gimmick in the upper right hand corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.